Hello, my name is Lynne Hardy. I'm the Associate Editor for Call of Cthulhu, and I'm joined here today by Cthulhu's Creative Director, Mike Mason.
Hello.
And today we're going to talk about using luck in the game. Now, I have to admit, luck is one of my favourite mechanics for 7th edition because it has got more players and their investigators out of scrapes than I can mention, usually with hilarious consequences. So, Mike, why did you introduce luck?
Well, I have to give Paul Fricker credit really because he came up with the concept and we were talking about it on the phone and he was saying, I like this idea of kind of giving players a kind of another try at something to kind of, to get over this kind of, I failed by 2%, what can I do? And we talked about it through and I said, well, why don't we just burn luck? That seems like to mirror the whole kind of downward spiral of sanity. The kind of luck of players, goes down as well in a horror game. They run out of luck eventually, and so we kind of formulated that, and then Paul kind of put it into concrete terms for the rules. That's really where it came from. It really came from this kind of for many years we've all been playing Call of Cthulhu. Even as a keeper, you kind of want to make that roll, and you fail it by a couple of percent points or whatever it may be, and it just seems to be able to burn your luck points to just adjust that roll just helps to kind of speed the game up. It does give the players some agency over these kind of rolls, and I don't think that's a problem. We want players to succeed to a large degree because if they don't, we don't move the plot forward. We're unable to tell the story. So having the players be able to kind of do that helps, I think helps the story. It helps to keep their investment in the game so they don't, because we've been there with a player who's just all night, they've just constantly failed rolls, never doing anything and never feeling they're contributing, and their kind of motivation and interest in the game can kind of wane a little, which is completely human and natural. So having this kind of a bit of agency where they can spend luck to kind of succeed, I don't think it's I think it's a great thing. I think it really helps the game along, and obviously it being Call of Cthulhu, there's a downside to it as well, which makes it even better. You spend your luck points go down, and then you need to make a luck roll. We need to in the game we use luck rolls to kind of determine the kind of fickle hand of fate. So things that fall outside our character's expertise or skill range. It's like, did you remember to pack your flashlight? Did you remember to, bring the old key you found, that, or whatever it may be? Is there a useful chair leg nearby to fend off the shoggoth? So all these are kind of, decided by fate. They're random. So we use the luck roll to do that. So diminishing that effectively means putting the players in more drama, more tension as they use up their luck. And players are very, normally. Well, I think players fall into two groups with luck. It's my experiences. They either are very, very cautious and try really hard never to spend it because they're so afraid that it's going to damage them, to players like me who will just spend as much as possible as quickly as possible, because I find it helps to move the game along, and secondly, my character now is in a far worse position, which for me is more interesting. It's more interesting. The character is going to get themselves into trouble as soon as the plot comes knocking at the door. My character is going to be in trouble because they're not going to be able to make some of those luck rolls that they really should have saved their points for. And it's more drama, it's more fun, crazy things happen. And so I think both ways of playing it are absolutely fine. But for me personally, I like to make things happen. I like to the story to hit me and to be able to kind of react to it and immerse myself in the full horror of the situation that partly I've caused just to myself. I think that's probably where I come from it on that one. What about yourself? Are you a cautious spender, or are you willy-nilly in just throwing caution to the wind?
Oh, it depends on what sort of scenario I'm playing. I mean, I don't get to play very often. I'm usually running it, but the odd times that I do play, it depends on what sort of game we're playing. If it's a one-shot, yep, I will throw them around with all abandon. If it's a campaign, depending on whether it's classic or pulp, I might be a little bit more cautious and maybe judge whether it's something important that I need to spend the points on to actually make that success. I know certainly when I'm keepering with less experienced players, with people who aren't used to the luck mechanic, what I tend to say is, if they say, oh, I want to spend some luck, and if it's not a critical role, I'll might suggest to them, well, do you really want to? Do you need to? Is it essential that you do this at this point in time? But of course, at the end of the day, it's up to them. But it's wonderful seeing people who've not used luck sort of discover it, particularly in one shots, particularly things are ramping up towards the gory finale, and they just start throwing them around like the stove tomorrow, because quite often there
isn't. Well, yeah, I mean, I one shots come up a lot with luck in terms of people sometimes think they won't allow luck in a one shot game because it can be too it's too beneficial to the players. They can control things too much. And I guess, to some extent, I can't disagree with that. Again, it comes down to what is the purpose of the one shot. Is it a convention game? Is it a bunch of people that have never played before, or are still kind of getting an idea of what Call of Cthulhu is about? And so sometimes I think, fine, let them win. Let them feel that sometimes you can win at Call of Cthulhu, which is true. Not everyone dies and not everyone goes insane. But I find as a keeper, if people have got a lot of luck, whether it's in a one shot or a campaign, and I really want to try and whittle that down, I will encourage them to spend luck on combat roles, because that's the best way of spending a lot of luck really quickly. Because a combat role can be the difference between your character suffering a major wound or dying or whatever. So actually making the dodge roll or fighting back and getting a higher level of success than your attacking opponent, you could be spending anywhere from 5 points of luck to 60 points of luck and use it all in that one desperate action to kind of dodge out of the way of the tentacle that's going to cause 10 damage, which will certainly kill your character. Spending 60 luck is a great resource, because I can now run away and live to fight another day, and I fully understand the full horror of that monster now, because if I hadn't have done that, I would be dead. So I think that there's some useful ways, and also be ingenious and cruel in the way that you in thinking of when you can call for luck rolls. Once people start spending luck, remind them that there is a consequence to it by calling for luck rolls. When deciding which character the hunting horror attacks first, just say, could you all tell me your luck? Who's on the lowest luck? Well, clearly the hunting horror is going to is attacking you first. Things like that, just make it useful and make the players see there's a consequence. So yeah, you are kind of educating them to say, try not to spend your luck too much, but equally you're doing the converse and say, yeah, spend your luck to to escape death and to live to fight another day, or to to really make a significant breakthrough when you really need to make that translation roll or library use roll or spot hidden. That's what it's there for, to kind of move the plot along, I guess. So
funniest use of luck you've ever seen?
I'm not sure. I mean, I've had players spend all their luck in one go. I've had but I don't know. It always seems to be around when you've got a dark young. So you have a dark young turn up in the scenario. Players instantly know, oh no, this is bad news. And before the dark young even stomps over to them, you used to have it start casting spells, really hideous spells at them from across the field. They worry, and then they realize one of the spells was some sort of barrier spell, so they can't escape, and it's coming up towards them. That's when they start spending all their luck on working how they're gonna get out of this. Someone spending all their luck on a Cthulhu mythos roll to kind of do an impromptu use of Cthulhu mythos to kind of put together this kind of spell that maybe will break through this barrier, so the dark young won't they can escape it. but putting all their luck in, literally all their luck in, and so it's all or bust, and doing it, but then and then then having them get to their car, and then the Dark Young is kind of leaping over it, leaping over the fields and just about to kind of grab the car, and it's kind of like, do you get the car started? Have you got the keys? All that kind of stuff. You think, well, I think that's a luck roll, isn't it? That's a luck roll to if you can make this final luck roll, you escape from the Dark Young. And of course, they've just spent all their luck, and they're on like 2 points or whatever. And you see the horror in their faces, and they kind of like, yes, that's perfect, because that's the whole point. This thing is a horrific thing that's gonna get you, and unless it's the chance of you escaping this is so small that it is like 2%. So it mirrored the whole kind of tension of the scene, and the players loved it. They had a great time, and when they failed the roll, they all oh no, but they were laughing at the same time. And it was a really memorable kind of climax to the story that they were all telling in the bar afterwards for the duration of the convention where this game happened. But so that's, for me, that was a kind of, this rule really worked really well. This is when we were playtesting the rules. But have you had any kind of crazy experiences with luck in that way?
Oh gosh, yes. I'm trying to think of. There's one particular story. I can't go into too many details because at some point it is going to get written up. But yes, the investigators decide to do something really stupid with members of the public, and then realise that they're doing something incredibly stupid with members of the public, and attempt to get them out of harm's way. And it really was a case of, look, it's going to be random whether they can actually manage it. And as you say, they'd already been very, very freely spending with their luck. So unfortunately, it failed, which led to all sorts of lawsuits in game due to negligence and goodness knows what else.
Sure.
Which the characters survived. Unfortunately, their careers were utterly ruined, and the place that they were working was closed down because they ran out of money because they had to pay all these legal bills.
Well, that seems part of the course for the life of an investigator. Some things work out, but mainly they don't. I guess one final thing to say on luck is back to one-shot games, whether it's a con game or just a single scenario, one session kind of thing. You can make the choice. I mean, luck is an optional rule in the game. You can just choose not to use it in the game, and that's absolutely fine. You can use it without any kind of constraints, and that's fine too. But if you do that, I think you've got to kind of think of ways to encourage players to spend their luck and use luck rolls, as much as you can to kind of make it a currency of value and tension in the game. Obviously, there is a middle ground. You can cut the luck of players. You can just say you're on half luck for this for whatever reason, and you can come up with you can just say that and players can accept it, or you can come up with an in-game contrivance, whether they've whether in the first the first few moments of the game they have some sort of hex cast upon them that gives them bad luck, which means their luck points are carved. They've drunk some deadly concoction of the MyGo, and again, it kind of in-game effect means that their luck points are drained in some way. You can think of various kind of ways to do this. It may just be they've been up for 24 hours, 48 hours, and the game kind of starts, in media res, and they've already, they're tired, they've been going for 24 hours in this situation that then unfolds in the game. And because of that, you just say, you are stressed, you're tired, you're not at your full capability, therefore you're on half luck, or you're on 40 points of luck, or whatever. I think that's all fine. You kind of put that out up front, agree it with the players, or give them pre-gens where the luck is already set. So then they've got no argument then to say, why has my luck gone down? The luck never went down. It always started at 40 or 30 or whatever it was. Again, it's control it, make it work for you either through the plot or just by being honest with the players and saying, this is a one shot, and things are going to be tougher. That's why you've got, less luck in this game.
Well, I think
Anything
that's
else?
probably about it.
Anything? Anything else to add, Lynn? Or
No,
have we done?
I think we've done it.
I think we've done luck for now. I'm sure there's things we've forgotten, but we can always revisit it, I guess. So, well, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again. Bye bye.
Bye bye.